Hi everyone, it's Hazel from Empowering Your Circle. I am so excited to bring you interviews from across the globe, from guest experts through to real life stories. So please tune in, please subscribe, like and comment, and let me know if you'd love to be a guest as well. I would love to hear from you. Hazel from Empowering Your Circle podcast. Thanks very much and look forward to hearing from you soon. So, welcome to Empowering Your Circles podcast. And today I have the absolute delight of talking to Clara Rose, who is a legal career coach, make sure I get this right, and recruiter with Clara Rose Consultancy. And it's really interesting because I was made redundant in April 24, which feels like that's a long time ago. And a mutual kind of connection put me in touch with you, Clara, which was really exciting. And I feel like, sadly, I didn't get a role, but you worked so hard to help me, given that I had a legal background. And I feel that anybody would benefit from having a conversation with you, at least having a conversation, if not being placed, because every conversation I had with you, I felt alive more. You know, when you kind of
Bless you.
get those skills dampened in you and you feel like, oh my gosh, what's my next step? But I
Yeah.
felt like every conversation I had with you made me kind of push myself up again, which is a
Brilliant.
credit to
Brilliant. Well,
you.
that's fabulous to hear. What a ringing endorsement. Thank you so much. But yes, I mean, I think this is what I try and do really when I speak to people. I try and understand them and what it is they're looking for and what they're about and, what do they need and what do they really want to move forward into and what are they trying to achieve. So I think I just try and go a bit deeper than sort of pinging people from one role to another role.
Yeah.
It's a bit more about understanding them as a person and what they're trying to achieve, and then, doing my best to match that. And it's interesting you say that I didn't find your role, but it was still useful. That's one of the reasons that I now offer just talking to people as a service because I do think it is useful. I can't, because it's just me, it's a small business. I can't know all the jobs in law across the UK, but I can actually speak to people in law and be valuable to them, even though I can't get them a job because I've been doing this for a number of years
A
now.
long
So,
time.
running my business for 15 years, been doing it for sort of 17 years, over 17 years now. So, yeah, yeah. And before that, I worked in law as well, doing CPD training, organising courses up and down the country with lawyers who were presenting, barristers who were presenting to solicitors who needed their CPD training back when it was a 16 hours a year tick box exercise.
Yeah. So Sissy, now you can now look at lawyers of all levels because that's important as well.
Mm,
Because there's people that are entering, there's people that are returning, there's people who are very high level, like you mentioned, barristers, but also very
mm,
high level solicitors. And a lot of those times, people are really struggling with how to make the choices and whether
mm,
they need
mm.
to make that choice to move, to look in a different direction, to
Ab-
even look at promotion potentially. How do you help
Absolutely.
someone that's in? I mean, I know that's a wide range of
Mm.
people, but is there like a set kind of standard that you think they need to think about or
I mean, really, I think with all of these things, it is about making sure you know what it is you're trying to achieve and why. So, gosh, reasons for being unhappy in a role can be many and varied. It could be that you don't like the work anymore, you don't like your boss anymore, you don't like the team or the working setup or something that's sort of relatively straightforward like that. Or it could be sort of a bit more vague, that you've sort of fallen out of love with the role, or
yeah,
is the law for me, or this sort of thing. You look to people who are more senior perhaps, and you think, well, I can see their lives. I'm not really sure that's what I want anyway, but this is what I'm meant to aspire to. Or you might want to spend more time with your family or something like this. There's really, nothing about the law at all, or set up another business. I mean, I literally have worked with lawyers who have, yoga businesses on the side, who have marketing businesses on the side, or all manner of things going on. So I think it's about, understanding what it is that you want, rather than, the law does offer a very rigid structure on the whole. Pyramid structure to the top is the standard, and it's not for everyone. And some people reach a level of comfort, happiness, or unhappiness.
Yeah.
And, then what do I do? So I think a big part of what I try and do when I'm recruiting for different firms or when I'm helping people find a role is having contact with a really wide range of organizations, so that yes, you can go to, a bigger, better law firm, and that's great. If that's what you want to do, then fantastic. But you might want to do something different, something that's, unusual or offers a different way of working. That could be remote working. There's consultancy setups which are on a fee share basis where you've got total autonomy of the work. I've got a role on at the moment where there's no time recording. So you don't need to
Wow.
time record because they go on
Oh, lawyers would
value-based
like that.
pricing. Exactly, exactly. It's something different. And that can be a real headache. Some people struggle with those 6-minute units.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They just go, it just drives them to distraction. So actually, a role away from that can be really interesting. Um, it could be in-house as well. I do a bit of in-house, and it's something I do enjoy doing because it's a different environment. But equally, even within law firms, if you've always been at a large law firm, what does a small law firm really feel like? If you're sort of in a middle sort of mid-tier law firm, sometimes you could be in the classic is sort of like your family lawyer maybe, who might
Mhm.
be a bit of a bolt on for the firm, not really valued. Private client can be the same. You're sort of there, you're integral, but you're not the focus because the big money's in the commercial sides of the firm. Well, that can be quite disheartening. So maybe you want to find a niche firm, where all they do is that. And so actually the whole focus is on your area of law, which means you're sort of special again and you're front and
Yeah.
center in that firm. You're not a bolt on, you're not an afterthought. So I think there's lots to think about in terms of what you're wanting and where you're going. And obviously, even partnership, partnership doesn't look the same in every firm, and can come with more or less responsibilities. Structure of the firm. If you're I think some of the hardest partnerships to be part of are where once you get into the nine, sort of 15 partners, and still everyone has to make a decision together. I mean, that's
Yeah.
very hard to get nine
Yeah.
people to
To
agree
make this,
on
yeah.
on a single course
Sometimes
of
it's hard enough to
action.
get two, let
Yeah,
alone nine.
exactly, exactly. So maybe you need a firm that has, a proper CEO, a proper management team that's separate so that you can be a partner and look after your law, your area of law, but then someone else is actually running the show, driving the charge and running the firm form.
So
Firm forwards, sorry, so that
that's all.
you've got that direction, and that drive is within the firm, and not everybody doesn't have to do everything, so it actually slows things down and can be so frustrating. So
Yeah, I think so. When I think about it, recently I was doing some training, and one of the things we were talking about was the difference between internal, like intrinsic motivators, and external or extrinsic motivators. And it was quite interesting because the people I was talking to were a range of different ages in the training, and it was, it's quite interesting because it made me think of my journey. So my
mm,
journey, obviously, when you're younger, it's very much about the external. It's the pay, it's the this, it's the whatever. And as you move forward throughout, your career, generally our motivators change. And like you were saying, a lot of that happens within the law firm because people are
mm,
like, okay, I want to spend more time with my children. So therefore, it's not necessarily the pay, it's this other element of my
mm.
life. So do you think it's important for them to look at a much bigger picture when they're trying to make a decision about what this move might be for them?
Definitely, definitely. I think the first thing, I mean, some people have done this already when I speak to them. Some people are not there yet and they're caught up in the I need a new role. It's not right, but they haven't really analysed why. And I do think one of the things I always say, if someone comes to me and says, "Oh, I'm looking for a new role," and I say, "Okay, what is it that you're looking for? What are you looking to change?" And they say, "I want more money." I go,
Right.
"Okay, that's whilst it's really important, it's never enough as a motivator. And if everything else was perfect and wonderful, more money wouldn't change anything, if you know what I mean. It's
Yes,
so
I do. Yeah.
if everything was great, you wouldn't leave the role just for more money because it wouldn't
Yes.
make any sense. Um, so it's always about, okay, what is the bigger picture and what are you trying to achieve? It's taking a step back and like you say, yes, different parts of your life, when maybe you just qualify, you can run at it a million miles an hour, you can push forward, you want to learn everything and you're so excited and it is your whole life and that's brilliant. But then at some point, yes, maybe children, whether you're male or female, you want to spend time with the children that you've created.
Yeah.
You want to sort of step back. You might want to move out of, London is the classic. You've done some years there and you've, cut your teeth and now you want to sort of change the balance of your life. Um, so being realistic and honest about what it is that you're looking for just goes a really long way. And also those things like, you're meant to want partnership, you're meant to want the next level. Some people have sort of apologized to me for not being ambitious. And it's like, well, what do you mean? It's like, oh, well, I don't really want, the promotion. I don't really want the next level. What I want is to spend time on my kayak or to spend
Yeah.
time with my family
Oh,
or
you
to,
wouldn't want to apologize for that. That's
exactly.
like
And
an
it's like, well,
amazing.
then that is your ambition. Your
Yeah.
ambition is not to progress higher up in the law firm. Your ambition is something else. Write your first novel, whatever it may be. But it's a valid ambition. It's simply not the one that sort of we're fed as we start our legal careers, so
Yeah.
it's fine if your ambition is something different. um but say be honest about that and don't expect that every law firm is going to need you to go in and say that same stuff. That, oh yes, I aspire to grow and thrive and develop and hit the top and all that sort of thing, because they don't it the structure is a pyramid, and by definition it doesn't work if everyone wants to get to the top of it. So
Yeah.
actually, if you're very happy where you are in the middle, you know what you're good at, you know what you excel at, you know the type of environment that works for you, you know how you're best managed, you know how you can manage people or that you don't want to manage people, however it is, but you're in. I mean, it is a comfort zone, but it's a comfort zone that suits you and suits your life because perhaps your aspirations do lie elsewhere.
Yeah.
Um, but that's fine because you're going to be a really useful part of the team for lots of people, because they can rely on you, you know what you want, you know what you're about, you know what you can give. And that's great, really valuable member of the team who can, be a real linchpin in that team,
Yeah.
um, without, jostling for power at the top sort of thing, and that's not for
N-
everyone, and that's fine.
No. I mean, I remember when I worked in law, we all obviously, and I think they do it here as well, but it's been a long time, so you might need to tell me. But when people graduated in law, they would go into a law firm and they do a rotational basis.
Hmm.
And I remember this young guy walked in and he said, "I only want corporate. That's it. I only want to work in corporate. Don't ask me to do anything else." I said, "Well, actually, let's just let you know, you have to go on a rotation." So
Mm-mm.
I said, "You don't know. You might change your mind halfway through." No, corporate is where I want to be. So I said, "Okay, fine." So I think they were 6 monthly. And
Mm-mm.
I think, I don't know, he must have gone through at least five, maybe six different rotations. So that took a little while.
Mm.
But when he got to family law, it completely surprised me because he came back over and said, "Do you remember when?" And I said, "What, when you said only corporate?" And he said, "Yes, I've just done family law. Oh my gosh, I've changed my mind. I seriously,
Wow.
just that's me. It's 100% me." And it
Wow.
stayed with me because I was like, sometimes we just don't know. And unless you explore sometimes
Yeah,
a different way, a different avenue, you really don't know whether you're in the right place. But when I
definitely.
saw him, I was like, whoa, that's a massive change from corporate to family. So,
Huge, huge change. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But
yeah,
it does go to show, yeah, we do exactly the same. Well, if you do a training contract here, it's the 6 months rotation, which is the same. And yes, exactly that, because I think what you study is one thing, how it translates to practice is another. What you
yeah,
think you're going to be good at, what you're actually good at, where it's interesting, where it's not. Some of these things aren't as cut and dried as they might be. I always think when people come into the law, the things that they tend to know quite quickly is, do I want commercial clients or individuals as clients? And then do I
Right.
want contentious or do I want non-contentious? And those things are often, even if you're not sure quite what area of law, those things normally come out quite quickly, because you'll either like the buzziness of contentious stuff or you won't, or you'll like the, you'll like the dealing with individuals and helping on a personal basis, or you won't. And so
Right.
those things are quite quick to define. And then where people, I mean, that's why that's quite a large move, because it's literally across from both of them, which just shows how different his thoughts were going in. But again, people go into law for all sorts of reasons, and sometimes it is the big flashy TV shows
Yeah.
they've seen or something like this, and then actually when they sit down and see the, the emotions on someone's face where they've helped them, and
Yeah.
that thanks that they get, and that actually that's really what's going to motivate them. I always think of it, what's going to motivate you for a career, what's going to be
Yeah.
interesting for a career, not what's interesting now, but what's going to sustain you and give you sort of constant challenge and reward and motivation and everything for the long term. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And I think that, that's also part of, I know that you help people. I mean, I love returners to work, like people who have had a career break
Mm,
and they want to come back. Now, whether that's law or it's not, it's one of the underlying things that they all face, which I've had the pleasure to help people through, is growing their confidence. But I'm assuming that there's an element as well when they're coming back into law. There's lots of things that have changed potentially. If they've
yeah.
taken a 10-year break,
Mm,
that
mm,
confidence is not, is kind of might be not rock bottom, but then they've got to go, oh my gosh, to get back, I've now got all this law to learn. I've got all these things to
mm,
do.
mm.
I assume that's a harder thing in some ways than somebody going in back into project management, for example, where there are changes, but
Yeah.
not to the level of all of these new regulations and legal requirements.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I guess you've got the two-pronged thing with law. Yes, there's that I've been out of the workplace, and that's a factor, like you say, confidence and all the rest of it. But yes, then there are the technical changes as well, which how much has the law changed in the last 10 years? Some areas of law you're
Yeah,
relying on statutes from, 1925 or something like this, and some of them, there's employment law, twice a year there's a new dump of legislation coming out. So yeah, it does vary according to the areas of law. But I mean, I think the thing that I always say, where if you are returning, the thing to hold on to is still that you have got that legal mind. You
yeah,
have got the analysis, the problem solving, the way of looking at things, the understanding the regulations or the rules around something, and then working with them. You understand, the documentation is the driver with these
yeah,
things. Well, you've got what we're trying to achieve, and then you've got the documents to then achieve it. And so some things don't change. You're taking a problem, you're applying the law to it, and then you're giving the solution back. That's universal in any area of law. So if you've
yeah,
done that in the past, you can do it again. um yes, you will need updating, but any lawyer needs updating. It's part and parcel of what you do. And also, if you've done your academics, albeit way back, you have the ability to understand the new statute in XYZ, the new case law in this area
yeah,
of law. It's all there, even though you need that refresher. And the important things, as is always the case with all jobs, and like you say, you work outside of law, I'm sure it's true, is going in and being able to communicate with people,
yeah,
understanding the world in which you're living. Say again, for lawyers, it's the problems that clients have, the way that you need to, give them the tools that they need to achieve their objectives in whatever area of law it is. Um, and most lawyers, it's about taking ownership of that and then giving it back as a solution. So it's that process doesn't change, even if the nuts and bolts have changed a little bit. As with all these things, it's about going in to the right place, getting the support that you need at the right level, and people understanding that. And obviously, law firms do vary in how they might
yeah,
do that. But I mean, a good example relatively recently, there was someone who'd had a very big sort of high flying London kind of a legal career, very much sort of corporate finance and banking and all of that. Couldn't see a way for that to work with children at all, and was moving outside of London to East Anglia, which is where I live. And so they just stopped that job, had a child, because they have a legal mind. They got involved in all sorts of things, helped charities with projects, all the rest of it on the side. And people were valuing the fact that they could run things past a problem-solving legal mind. Um,
Yeah.
so they were already being used for that legal mind they still had. And then when they got back into law, we were very fortunate in that we found something that was very flexible and sort of uh, not quite ad hoc, but sort of just bits and bobs going on to get back into it. And it was just on the corporate commercial side. So it was actually just looking at contracts and just going back to sort of basics, really, which they weren't familiar with because they'd been doing this big sort of high flying
Yeah.
corporate finance work. But actually, we can all go back to our legal training, look at contracts, see how they're fitting in the big picture. And really, this is what they'd been doing sort of for fun while they weren't in law, helping
Yeah.
charities by looking at some of these contracts and this sort of thing. And really, they just had that innate ability to do that. So I think, yeah, there's always roles
Yeah.
out there, but it looks, the role they have now is very different from where they were in law. Um, but it's sort of, yeah, tapping into those bits which are still the same and building and growing from there, really.
Yeah, because I think all of us have transferable skills no matter what we do. And if you
Totally.
go like your CPD training into career coaching, you're taking that information and you're doing something different with it, but it's still
Yeah.
all there. And that's
Yeah.
what I think about, the the, the returners to work that I've dealt with and worked with in the past. They'll come in and say yes, but, and it's like, no, you can't start a sentence with yes, but. You
Mm,
have to
mm,
go back and say, look at all the things that I did.
mm,
You
mm,
worked on really high quality things.
mm.
That means you can do it again. And you
Yeah.
can't be, I think we've been through quite a large portion where a lot of businesses would say, oh, you've had a career break and that's a really bad thing. So I think
Mm,
we've moved
mm.
away from that, thankfully, and we're now back on track a little bit more with
Yeah.
saying that's not a bad thing.
Mm,
I mean, when you're a parent, whether you're male or female and you take that time off, you're always organizing and you're
mm,
always doing
mm,
all of those things that you need to have when you come back in your career. So I think it's really important that, people realize, yes, there's still a learning curve when you come back,
mm, mm.
but it's really important to know that, you can do it. So
Yeah.
obviously,
No,
those people who
definitely.
are listening can say, Clara will help you get back.
Absolutely. I mean, someone the other day was asking, what should I do? I've had a career break. How should I address that on my CV? And I said, just put in that you've had a career break, put in the reason. If it's caring for children, caring for parents, building a house, whatever it is,
Yeah,
just put that in there. Be straightforward about it. I think gone are the days of sort of having to pretend that we don't have children or something, that we don't have other responsibilities. And quite frankly, if you are going for an interview and a firm is, really frowning on the fact that you have a family outside of work, then is it where you want to be?
yeah,
I think in this day and age, everyone's much more aware and understanding. And it is worth noting that it is men as well.
yeah,
I speak to many men who want to do the school run, who want to do the pickup, who want to be there for bedtime, and it is a sign of the times, and it's good because it means that now any of a generation, if you are a parent of any gender, then
yeah,
the responsibilities of being a parent. And I think that's where a career break on your CV now does get some recognition for how hard that is, because everybody is appreciating that that is a big job and an important job and a
yeah.
juggling job and challenging and all the rest of
It
it.
certainly is.
So I
And
think
it
it's,
doesn't change.
yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
So,
So,
um, so I know that with all of this experience and this wonderfully amount of wealth of knowledge that you have, you offer people what I think is an amazing opportunity. Because, like I said right at the beginning, for me, having that person I could talk to see how I could, utilize my skill sets and work my way back in and build, the credibility I knew I had, but it was like buried.
Mm-mm.
You can do that to help people feel a bit more impactful through something you call your power hour. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It was really introduced in response to what people wanted. The sort of the normal, as it were, is that people are looking for a job, so they come to me because they're looking for a job, or I reach out to them with a job that is of interest, and they say yes, let's explore that and see where that goes. So, I'm talking to people about jobs, but there's lots of people that fall into that category of I want to talk about my career, but I'm not ready for a job. I don't even want to move jobs,
Yeah.
whatever it is. There's lots of circumstances. And so some of the first ones I did were where people were looking at promotions and not feeling confident enough for a promotion, or weren't sure if they were ready, or, that sort of thing, wanted to bounce it around as an idea. And so we can sit down and look at that. And again, what I would do is talk to them about things like their aspirations. Is this what you want? And I think that's, it is a big step,
Yeah.
especially if you're going into partnership, especially if you're going to invest. Is that something that you actually want to do? Is it ticking the boxes for you, or are you on a track that you feel obliged to continue down? Or is it going to tick all the boxes for you, in which case you want to get it right? So, you can have those sessions with me to sort of bounce that around and see what's working and what isn't, how to prepare yourself as well. Sometimes you'll need CVs drafted, sometimes you'll need to do interviews, you might need to do presentations, this sort of thing. We can talk that through, and you can have someone external
Yeah.
rather than within the firm telling, helping you sort of plan of action sort of thing. Um, I've had people where they were actually wanting to exit a role, that they weren't happy with that role at all. They knew where they were going. They had, in this case, it was sort of more of a family business that they wanted to get back to, but they wanted to exit well, and they wanted to make sure they sort of wanted just a proof check, really, that what was happening to them was above board and there wasn't any sort of
Right.
thing going on, just how to deal with people in that scenario, and how to sort of best play it, kind of thing, because they didn't want to burn any bridges, and they didn't want to um, come off badly in that scenario or anything like that. So that was sort of a parting of ways, where they just wanted someone to sort of proof check it, really, as it went along. Oh goodness, I've had people come in
Mhm.
sort of where they have had a job search that has been ongoing for a long time,
Mhm.
um, and they don't know why. That they're just
Right.
not getting what they want as their next step, and they've applied for lots of things. They're either, and it's back to basics. What's the CV look like? Is it working? How are you interviewing? What are you saying? These sorts of things, and just doing the work to get them to the next stage. So hopefully then they can present themselves as well as they possibly can do. And CV drafting, it's so simple, and yet it's so complicated. I've had some of the CVs, can be really senior people, and there's sort of a list of roles and very
Yeah.
little detail, and this sort of thing. And it's, it can be a bit of a hassle to write a CV, but really you can put so much into a CV if you do it well, if you draft it well, and that sort of thing. But again,
Yeah.
it's about thinking about, people assume that other people know sort of what they've done, almost
Yeah.
to
And
some
they think by
extent.
listing something that does
Yeah,
say it all,
exactly. And they
without,
think everyone will understand. I've been at this firm. Oh, you know what that means. And
yeah.
it's not the case, it's not the case. Everything's
No.
different. It depends what you pulled from that experience. So
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
getting all
I
of that right.
remember worked for CVs with senior people for a long time. And I remember 10-page CVs. Somebody gave me a 10-page CV and I was like looking at it going, okay, I think we need to reduce that quite a lot. Oh, I
Yeah,
don't know how to. It's like, I've got
yeah.
so much information in it and they all need to know it. And I said, okay, let's go back. So I went to like page 9 or whatever it was. And I said, I don't think they need to know what you did like, 15, 20 years ago in that much detail.
Yeah,
Like, let's
yeah.
just slim it down a little bit. But one of the things that I think is important is when they get in more senior, people do not say the impact they've had. Like, here's my key achievement. And if
Mm,
you've got that in
mm.
your CV, that will stand out more if you're going for a job than if it's just a list of things. So,
Absolutely, absolutely. Or if you're a returner, if you've done some phenomenal work in the past, but sort of now it's covered by a few other fill-in roles or some other bits that you're doing and a career break and all this sort of thing, it could be knocked right down. So
mm,
you need a way to pull them front and center, you know, yes,
yeah,
and be proud of them. I did do these
yeah.
things, you know, here they are, kind of thing, front and center. Yeah,
I
all
think
right.
that's the thing you touched on. They're not always proud of it. It's kind of like,
Mm,
that's so far in the past. How can I be talking about something that's like that
mm,
far
mm,
about? Well, bring it to the summary about you at the beginning, and
mm,
then
mm.
someone will go, "Oh, look at that person. That's what they can bring."
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly, exactly that. And I think, say, it's like you said before, the transferable skills and that kind of thing, you know, they're always there. Um, but it is about, yeah, knowing what you want and what you're trying to achieve. And whether it's, say, whether it's in the CV drafting or in the power hour, it's like sitting down with people and getting to the root of what it is they're looking for and what works for them and directions
yeah,
they're going and why they're going in that direction and, you know, life plans and all the rest of it. I mean, I know people that have qualified in their 50s. I know people that have qualified, you know, in their 30s, people that come straight out of university and whistle through it all. And they actually all come with their own problems, you know.
mm,
So, and their own positives.
yeah,
So it is about pulling out of all of that, you know, where the positives are and, you know, overcoming any hurdles
yeah,
that you might face because of where you are in that stage, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
There's
because I think what you do with the Power Hour is something you said a little while ago when you said you were the external. Because I think sometimes if you are just talking to the people that you work with
mm,
day in, day out,
mm,
you don't fully see, like, going back to the bigger picture, you're not looking at it. Whereas if somebody
yeah,
can help you kind of, look at from up there down, all of a
mm,
sudden you feel like, oh, here, oh, Clara's in, like, brought something to life I hadn't even thought about. No one else
yeah,
has said it to me.
yeah.
So that's why
Well,
I think,
I think the normal people that you speak to, if you do speak internally, you speak to your line manager or partners or whatever it is at the firm, they all not have their own agenda in some kind of negative way that but they simply have what they're trying to achieve. They have their own aspirations and they
yeah,
would tend to relate to the firm and the plans and the direction of that firm, um, and rightly so because that's what they should be doing as leaders of that firm, but that is their focus and you are part of that plan. The other people you can bounce things off, of course, is, you know, your mum and your sister and your brother, and they may even work in law, but they will only have their view of things. And if they don't work in law, then they probably don't even understand what you do as a day job. Never mind, you know, they want you to be happy and they come from the right place,
yeah,
absolutely. But they have no idea what that looks like or how that translates to the legal world. So, you know, conversations with them are also important, but they, you know, it's having the actual input and the actual, you know, say third party that doesn't
yeah,
have a plan of their own, that doesn't have, you know, doesn't understand the complex legal world that you're working in. So yeah, it's having someone who can sort of be looking at it with you, with knowledge to bring to the table. Really, I think
yeah,
that is where I
yeah,
can sort of add value, really. And like yourself, people do tend to say, "Oh yeah, that's I hadn't even thought of that. I hadn't thought of that." You know, because you can get quite blinkered if you're working at one
yeah,
sort of law firm. I mean, I've had people where they've qualified they've gone through academia very well, they've gone to a very big name of a law firm, done the training contract. I've spoken to them towards the end of the training contract and they're like, I hate it, I hate law, it's not for me at all. You know, everything about it is at odds with me. I just want to get out of here as quick as possible. And I'm like, well, what about a high street law firm? What about a little place on the corner where Mr. and Mrs. Jones come in and they want to speak about their will, but they want to tell you all about their life and all about their family, and you can pick up all the problems, you know, that
yeah,
they didn't even think they had, and you could do something for them. They'll be ever so grateful, and then they'll send their friends along and they'll do the
yeah,
same, you know. It's going to be a very different feel, you know, to the big shiny law firm. Um,
yeah.
And I know before I've likened it to retail, you know, if you're working at Tesco's or you're working at Harrods or you're working, you know, in online retail, they're very different, but they're all
Yeah,
retail.
yeah.
But you wouldn't
I
begin
would
to think those jobs are the same, you know. So I think in
no,
law, again, now where you've got remote law firms, you've got, you know, high street law firms, big law firms, niche ones, modern ones, traditional
yeah.
ones, you know, there's a lot of difference out there, and
And I think that's right. I mean, you know, but you do need someone to guide you to some degree if you're not open to it. You know, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
I
yeah.
worked in Australia in one of the top four banks,
Mm,
and you would niche into a specific thing. Not in
mm,
the first thing I had because we were a very small branch, so everybody like almost learnt each other's roles. But as you went into the bigger branches, you were literally that's your role
mm,
and that's what you're going to do. And yet, when you went into a smaller bank, which is what I ended up doing just for a year, it was like,
mm.
whoa, I'm learning about loans and I'm doing this, and I was never going to do that
Yeah,
in a
yeah,
bigger place. So, I do think there's a thing where somebody might go, I'd like to be an all rounder. So, how
yeah.
do I achieve
Mm,
that? You know, I
mm,
don't want to sit here and be niched into
mm.
something for my entire career.
Absolutely.
So if they can get through into a power hour with you, I'm assuming assuming they go to your website. Is that right?
Oh
To
yeah,
book it?
absolutely. Yeah, you can book it through the website or find me on LinkedIn and message me or whatever. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Always happy to. Always happy to speak to people and see what I can do and bring some, hopefully, some light to the situation.
And I know that you will because you did for me. So you definitely will
Oh,
do it for someone else as well. So
thank you.
if you want a power hour with Clara, then I suggest you go to her website because there's lots of testimonials and lots of amazing things. There's also jobs on there. So if you are looking for a legal job, but you need to go to clararoseconsultancy.co.uk, not .com. Some people just miss the .co.uk and decide something else. So definitely .co.uk. But I think it's really important because people, you know, think that being in law is this wonderful thing and there's like only one way and all that sort of stuff. But we've clearly heard
Mm,
from Clara that there's many ways to get through your legal career. So please look her up and have a chat with her because you will find it beneficial. So thanks,
brilliant.
Clara, for
Thank
being
you.
on
Thank you for
my
having me,
podcast.
Hazel.